Breaking news on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnLine.com. The Alabama Crimson Tide get some great news out in San Antonio on this Saturday, Tim Watts. Couple of four-star prospects and Daniel Hill and Zay Mincey make their intentions known at the All-Star game, both headed to the University of Alabama. Your initial thoughts upon the news that Alabama will be obtaining the services of this dynamic duo?
I think a month ago, we probably weren't looking at this scenario, right? I think Daniel Hill has been a very elusive person to track in this recruiting process. Again, has been to Alabama 20 times, 20 plus times in his life. I always felt like Alabama was close to getting, but never quite pushed him over the edge. Mincey, he's another, that big defensive back class Alabama signed. Every in-state school in Florida, the three big ones, went after him as hard as they could, full court press to get Mincey. So I think a month ago, we're looking at maybe hoping to get one, maybe get none. And then, a week or two ago, we had some nuggets leading that Alabama was in it. We had a nugget 1 week ago that said, we felt comfortable that Alabama was going to get them. They wanted to keep it a little bit of a surprise as they got to the All-Star game. But, I think Daniel just kind of let it out of the bag towards the end. He's pretty excited. And Mincey, again, two immensely talented guys in a class that was already good. This class is really, really good. I know you people are going to look at number two, but this is a very talented group overall.
Hey, let's start with Daniel Hill, the big back out of Meridian, Mississippi. We've got some tape here. You see him here offset, actually at a wildcat position. He's just going to take the snap here, cut it up. And again, you see the strength right there and the ability to run through contact. I know you've heard some things about him in terms of his power and maybe his physical makeup. What do you see here from Daniel Hill?
He checked in. Charles Power told me he checked in right under 6 feet tall and 239 pounds. I think with Daniel, when you look at him, you kind of wonder how good he can be. But then as a running back prospect, but talking to Charles, talking to Cody Belair, who also does our recruiting for On Three, both of them said this kid's got some waggle. He can take it around the end. He could obviously take it up the middle, got a little burst. And the biggest thing that stood out to me is both said he could catch the ball out of the backfield. You look at him, he's an athlete. I think 2 years ago as a sophomore, we were discussing him as a linebacker, H-back type prospect and running back. But I think when you look at him, adding him with Kevin Riley, I think you're looking at a little of that shake and bake. You're looking at a little of that, thunder and lightning coming in. And then on the heels of having Richard Young and Justice Haynes all kind of in the ballpark of Riley. This is sort of that thumper that Alabama fans have been screaming for. Justin Fowler's not a bad comparison. But, obviously a guy that's talented, a jumbo athlete type running back.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a big 0 to 60 guy, but he doesn't seem to get caught a lot. And understanding these are highlight tapes. And look, the guy does a pretty good job throwing it with that left hand, too. He's a versatile athlete.
Yeah, I think he enjoyed the recruiting process as much as anybody. Took his visits. At the end, his quotes were basically, it was a no-brainer. I knew where he was going to go. I said all along, I had no idea what he was going. We've been ready for his commitment for 6 to 8 months minimum, if not actually probably longer than that. He was a guy I thought would be early on the board in this class. But hey, guy wanted to handle it a certain way. He wanted to handle his recruitment. He said he wanted to commit at an all-star game. And hey, kudos, tip of the hat for him to be able to hold on to that and get that done.
Yeah, Justice Haynes and Richard Young a year ago in the 2023 cycle. Now you look at Daniel Hill to go along with Kevin Riley. That's a couple of nice duos in back-to-back classes, Tim.
Hey, and I'll tell you something else. This is not a good running back class. I've said this dozens of times. It is not a good running back class. And to get Riley and Hill on top of what you had last year, I think it's an A-plus effort from Robert Gillespie and the whole coaching staff to go dig those guys out. They had to scramble late if you look at it. They're pulling, late. They're going on Jaden Baugh, who ended up at Florida, Kewan Lacey, who ended up at Missouri, Kevin Riley, who was committed to Miami, and Daniel Hill, who was kind of, keeping it so close to the vest. So there's a lot of questions about the recruiting class from the Bama fans at the running back positions. I get it. I understood it then. I knew they felt good they would get two guys, one guy for sure, two guys they felt like they could get. And I think they did an A-plus effort here.
So let's move on to Zay Mincey, another big time pickup. Boy, we've talked about this before. This is a loaded defensive backfield class for Alabama in 2024. And it just got stronger with a guy who, as we'll watch some of his tape here, length comes to mind. So when you think about that prototype defensive back in general that Nick Saban likes, Zay Mincey at 6'2 or so, maybe a little bit more than 6'2, 185 pounds, he definitely checks those boxes, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy. I think Charles Power said his wingspan was 6'7", huge wingspan. He's getting out there, and again, some position flexibility when you look at him. A guy that can project at a couple of different spots. Again, Florida State, and Miami were all in on this guy. Really going to be bummed out that Alabama ended up with him. They were all in, top 40 type prospect. And you just look at him individually, he's a big get. But you add him collectively to the rest of this class, like you said, and I mean, if defensive backs are your thing, this is the class for you. There's a ton of talent on the field, good size at a lot of them, good aggression. I think you see a mixture of everything you want to see. With guys, he's at the All-American game now, but so is Peyton Woodyard and Xavier Brown, who both held their own too. I mean, they're up there doing their thing after coming from bowl practices in California. So secondary class, you got to like Jalen Mbakwe. I mean, again, as much as we've talked about him lately, I still don't think we're talking about him nearly enough. I still think that Jalen, five-star type talent to go with, Zay Mincey, another guy that's in the discussion for five-star, Domani Jackson, who was a top 10 type prospect in the country. Those are just the corners you're getting to. You start digging into the safeties and you got to run.
Yeah, it's and you've had some turnover there of late, as we know, with Earl Little Jr. hitting the portal, perhaps also when you think about Christian Story. But man, with all these early enrollees, Tim, that the staff has also already gotten an opportunity to see in bowl practices for a lot of this. When you talk about Woodyard and Xavier Brown and Jameer Grimsley and Red Morgan, Drake Kirkpatrick Jr., the list just goes on.
Yeah, with Jameer, that's another one I didn't talk about yet, is you look at that picture of the freshmen that were in practicing at the bowl game. That's a big fella. He had some nice size on him, and he stood out. That's another thing with Zay Mincey. He's going to be in that 6'2" range. He's going to have that size. But Jameer, that's a guy college coaches love. When they said upside, not just Alabama, other college coaches, when they said upside in the defensive back class, Jameer Grimsley was at the top of everybody's list, a guy that can stretch out. You can see these guys at free safety, star, corner, boundary guys. There's just so much to do. And again, you mentioned the safeties, probably not as like high profile, the pure safety, Red Morgan and Drake Kirkpatrick, but I will bet you it's going to be hard to find a better pressed senior film from anybody than those two guys in the country.
Both did a real. Go ahead. You said it too, with positional versatility with some of these guys. You can play them at safety, you can play them at that star position, and it could be that Alabama is very much in the market for immediate help at multiple spots on the back end. So the more you can do, and the more you can absorb and take to the field from there, the better your chances of playing early. And Alabama looks like it's got some of these guys. Zay Mincey, as you said too, with that size and that length, that skill set, it's not all that difficult to see him handling a couple of different roles. Although you would think maybe on the outside press coverage with that length, he could be really sticky for these X and Z receivers to work against. But talent nonetheless at just about every spot.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a couple guys that are 6'2" range and long. You're getting speed and Jalen. You're getting hard hitting guys. And again, Drake Kirkpatrick, flipping to the safety position. Sometimes the ball just finds a player. You know what I mean? Like it just hunts them down. Obviously, that's because they have a sense for the ball, nowhere to be, good hands, all that stuff. I think Dre's that guy. Again, not ideal size, but we've seen safeties in that 5'11" range do just fine. But overall with this class, I mean, you line them up, look at their senior film, how they did in all-star games, just a deep group of defensive backs. And I was talking to some college coaches on the side note with Domani Jackson, and you're always curious how a guy that talented ends up leaving. I think there's a ton to work with Domani. I don't think it's anything other than maybe a fresh start, a change of pace, and getting in that secondary, working with, T. Rob and Nick Saban, of course, is going to be big for him too. But I mean, a talented group, and you just flip to the overall class. I mean, this class, this is another A class on the heels of an A plus class, where they kind of had to recruit against themselves in a lot of situations. Just did a tremendous job of getting these big name guys, on campus. And like you said, a lot of them are already on campus.
Yeah, that's the added bonus to all this, especially with the turnover via the portal. But man, still some stuff to go too, perhaps, as we
Yeah, they're
move into the late period and the portal as well.
Ryan Williams, that's a big one. He's got 3 visits coming up. He's going Alabama, Texas, Auburn, committing on his birthday, February 9th, signing on his birthday, February 9th, he said. Very pro Alabama this week. Again, giving, volunteering quotes, volunteering comments, celebrating with his teammates. You can see how close he is with some of those guys. Caden Jones, a linebacker commitment, had a pick 6 return in the game yesterday. And it's hard to watch those games, though. You know what I mean? You look and I'm torn between. I wanted to see Julian Sayin in that game yesterday. I wanted to see Caleb Odom. But again, you can't pass up an opportunity to practice. The last opportunity you're going to get to practice with a few of those guys. It's going to be the only chance you ever get because they'll be going pro. But just a little bit different feel where I would like to see Julian in that game. But I know he's drawing rave reviews already in the in the practices. So him and Caleb both stood out really well. So
there you go, a double dip for the Alabama Crimson Tide out in San Antonio on a Saturday. Daniel Hill, 4-star running back from Meridian, Mississippi, commits to the Crimson Tide. Same for Zay Mincey, a 4-star corner from Daytona Beach, Florida, Mainland High School. Just adding to that impressive haul for Nick Saban in his 2024 class. Tim, thanks for taking the time, my man.
I am. I'm enjoying the fact that Daniel has made a choice. I'm gonna savor it because he kept me on our toes. He kept us on our toes a very long time. So good for him. That's a win. Also on Zay with his top 4-star, Charles Power has him the 24th ranked player in the country. So there's a few others that are there's a few others where these guys' stock can go up because there's one more ranking coming after these games. This is the last look practice. It's not about the game. The game comes in handy, but it's about those practices, those reps. And again, one guy that stood out to me was Peyton Woodyard. Alabama's represented itself well. So,
and we're going to have all these kind of nuggets from Tim and our staff for you right there at BamaOnLine.com. So come hang out with us at the roundtable, our premium message board there at BOL. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you should do that right now. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our video content on YouTube as it drops as well. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanking you once again. And